Alright, in this video we're going to talk about the situation in which you need to keep track of like a grid work or a spreadsheet of data. So the way to think about this is we're going to create a list of lists. So this creates a list. It's an integer array. We can say it's a new int array, say with 10 elements. But what if we had 10 different lists to keep track of, or 8 different lists, or 200 different lists? Well, we can do that by saying we want to create a list, but we want to create a list of lists. And so in this instance, my 2D array becomes kind of a grid work of whatever dimensions we need. So for our example, we'll just say it's a list, it's 10 lists, and in each of those lists there are 8 items. So you can create these of any type: string, array, two-dimensional string array, str array equals new string. Just add an absurd number of elements for our example. We're not going to print it out. That's just for an example. You can make these as large as you want. You can use doubles. Oops. Double array equals new, and then the type, followed by the dimensions of your desired array. You can create a Boolean array, right? Boolean array equals new Boolean 2 by 2. But you can see that the data, there's potentially an enormous amount of data that, or a large amount of data that we need to assign variables to and get at. So how do you get at this? Well, we know how to create a loop to look at the first part. So let's do that. We're going to use this integer array for our example. Okay, the rest of them are just to show you that you can create arrays of any type. So let's create the outer loop. For int row, you can declare an integer within the loop. For int row equals 0, row is less than my 2D array dot length, and this you already know how to do. And every time through the loop I want to increment row by 1 so that it will look at every list. It'll access every index, every one of these indices. But now, how do we get at, within each list, how do we get at every one of these 8 slots in that list? Well, we need to create a loop inside the loop. So for int column equals 0, column is less than my 2D array is less than the length of every row, column plus plus. So what this says is, now, okay, at row 0, I want you to go over all the elements, and then once you're done with that, you can go up and increment row, and then at row 1, I want you to go over all of the columns, and then at row 2, I want you to go over all the columns, and then at row 3, I want you to go over all the columns, and so on and so on. So, what should we do here? Well, initially we just want to assign a value, so my 2D array at row column equals, let's do row plus column just so that you can see it changing, and perhaps we should use a string array. Now this is fine. Alright, so now let's write that again just so you can see it written again and to print out the array. So again, we want to create a for loop. For int row equals 0, we want to go through each of the rows, so continue as long as row is less than my 2D array dot length, so the number of rows, and every time I want you to increment row by 1. And then you need to create, say, at every row, here's what I want you to do. Create an integer called column. Column equals 0. Column is less than my 2D array at the row, so less than the length of every row, column plus plus. I screwed that up because that needs to be a period, not a comma. Open brace, hit return, and now let's just print out the value. System.out.print, not print line, which we haven't talked about, so you can just print, because we don't want it actually to skip down to the next line, so that you can see what's going on in this array. So we're going to print out that character plus my 2D array at row column. And then after every line, so this is going to be row 1, row 2, row 3, it's going to do this stuff. After it completes that, we just want it to print out a line so that you can see what's going on. And you can, this is kind of a cheater way to print out a line, system.out.println with nothing inside the parentheses. So what is this going to do? Well, the first set of, we call these nested for loops, so this is a nested for loop. This set of nested for loops will assign the value of row plus column to the index row column, and this one will print out our array. So let's go ahead and do this right now. Run it, and you can see that at row 0, so this is a row, at row 0, column 0, row plus column equals 0. And at row 1, column 0, you can see what it added there, and so on down the array. So this is a very useful way to keep track of large amounts of data in lots of different instances, and that's it for this video.